Are you ready to scale and outsource your business?
Okay, let's go.
Welcome to the Outsourcing and Scaling Show. I'm your host, Nathan Hirsch, a show where we talk about everything Amazon, Shopify, e-commerce, and digital marketing. Let's get started. Welcome back to the Outsourcing and Scaling Show. My guest today is Brian Basilico. Brian, how are you doing today?
I'm fantastic, Nathan. How are you, man?
Doing great. Really appreciate you here. I really appreciate you having you here. I know you use remote teams a lot, so I'm excited to talk to you about that. For those of you that don't know, Brian is an award-winning author of the best-selling book, It's Not About You, It's About the Bacon. It's about bacon, relationship marketing in a social media world. He was honored as one of the top marketers to follow in 2018. Brian is an online marketing strategist with over 40 years of marketing experience and the owner of an award-winning internet marketing company, B2B Interactive Marketing, Inc. He's world-renowned for his LinkedIn training and strategies and was one of the first 1,000 people to join the social network in 2004. Brian is a syndicated blogger, podcaster, and a sought-after guest expert featured in Entrepreneur and Inc. magazines. His show, The Bacon Podcast, which I was on iTunes, was also voted one of Inc. magazine's top 35 business podcasts. I am pumped to talk to you, man. Thank you so much for coming on.
Dude, it's a pleasure. Thanks for having me on your show. I mean, turnabout, baby. You're on mine. Now I'm on yours.
Exactly. Trying to get this podcast rolling. So I want to talk about all of that. But first, let's take a gigantic step back. What were you like growing up? Were you a rebel? Were you a straight A student? Did you know you wanted to be an entrepreneur?
Oh, yeah. No, I was an entrepreneur since I was a little kid. I mean, even at 6 years old, I was holding, like contests and stuff in my backyard. And I've been an entrepreneur since I was a little kid. And it actually all culminated at 18 when it really started, where I started making money. And I opened up a recording studio in my dad's basement. And one of the stories I tell people all the time is I was doing content marketing in 1979.
Wow.
Now, when you talk, well, that's the thing is everybody goes, well, how do you do content marketing in 1979? Because there's no internet, there's no email, there's no websites, there's none of that stuff. And what I did is I had this recording studio and I was doing commercials and bands and things of that nature. And what I would do is I used an Atari 400 computer and I would sit there and I would type up articles and I would literally cut them out with the scissors, put them on an 11 by 17 sheet of paper, and then fold them up, send them to a printer and have them mailed out to my clients. And so that was content marketing in 1979. And that same principle, the same stuff is what we do today.
I love it. So what was your first entrepreneurial endeavor outside of the content marketing?
Well, I mean, like I said, I was doing the recording studio thing, and then I got a gig. I went and worked for AT&T for a bunch of years doing video production. The next major thing when we were talking, in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, was a commercial recording studio in Chicago. And we did everything from radio and TV ads, audio for TV. We did IVR, which is interactive voice response, which is those things everybody hates when you call up, press 1, press 2, that kind of stuff. Did work for Motorola, AT&T, McDonald's, these large corporations. Had a $500,000 worth of gear. And, made $500,000 in business. And nowadays, man, you can do all of that stuff on an iPhone. So it's crazy,
Yeah. Talk to me about when the internet first burst onto the scenes. What I know you got into LinkedIn early, but what other things were you able to take advantage of getting in at such an early time?
Well, way back yonder, I mean, starting to do websites, everything was hand-coded. Everything was, we didn't have like CRMs, or content management systems, CMSs. CRM is content relation managers. We didn't have that stuff. I mean, early email, I mean, being on AOL, if anybody remembers AOL, it's like, you've got mail. You dial up and you'd sit there and wait for the thing to jump on board. So it was, it was a wide open West back then, and it didn't have any rhyme or reason, and it was really hard to say, can you really make money doing this? Seemed like the only people making money are the people that offered access. But man, it's come a long way. I mean, I remember postage stamp videos that were that big, and that was like so cool, man. You can make a video and, put it on a CD-ROM. I mean, it's like with this business, when I opened this one, my last gig was at Arthur Andersen. I kind of bounced from, I took the recording studio, sold it to a production company, worked for them. I didn't play well in that sandbox, got a corporate gig, didn't play well in that sandbox, and I opened this up in 2001. And back then, I was still doing websites for companies, but again, we didn't have WordPress, we didn't have Squarespace, Drupal, all the stuff we have today. And the business was built on making business card CD-ROMs with videos for clients, and that's what it was back then. So, but I've been a programmer, a content developer, like I say, audio, video. I learned how to program CD-ROMs, websites for years. So, I've got my hands deep into the code. Let's put it that way.
How has content changed, and what is working right now?
Well, content really has not changed at all. I mean, you can go back to the 1900s and the same advertising, marketing, copywriting, graphic principles work today as they did then. Nothing has really ever changed. What's changed is the delivery platforms, how we deliver this content. And so let's go back to, 1990 when I opened up the commercial recording studio. Again, it's pre-internet. Back then, the way that you got people's attention is with this thing called the Yellow Pages. You may remember it. You might have one propping up a table in your office right now. But, the Yellow Pages back then were the only game in town. And people would pay thousands of dollars to be in there. But it was also, a CRM, a content relationship manager, or a customer relationship manager. I went through and I looked for all the ad agencies. And I literally would get on the phone and I'd say, I'd pick up the phone, dial an ad agency and say, hey, do you use audio in anything that you do? If they said yes, I'd say, okay, who's the principal? And I just want to verify your address. And I'd write it down. And then I would send them a print package in the mail. And it was basically it was an open, folder, and I'd stick sheets in there and all that other stuff. And, the ones that said no, I scratched them off. And the ones that said yes, I would send them something. That is exactly the same principle that we use today. But instead of sending it, physically in the mail, we send it via email, or you might put it up on social media. Or, the key thing is that the principles, as I said, never change. So that's, what's working today is more about getting the right message in front of the right audience at the right time. And so I always talk about, and let me know if I'm going too far on some of this stuff, because I can get deep into the weeds, or I can kind of do the big broad brush overview. But I talk about 3 different kinds of content. There is what's known as awareness content, there's educational content, and there's sales content. People, and I explain that in a philosophy called OPEN. OPEN stands for oblivious, pondering, engaged, and need. Okay, so let's talk about oblivious. When I talk to clients, or when I talk to people who are running their own businesses, I ask them, who's your perfect customer? The ones that tell me everybody, I say, okay, you don't understand your perfect audience. But it's what I call selling dog food to cat people. All right. You're trying to sell because somebody has a cat. They like pets. So you're trying to sell dog food to a cat person because someday they may get a dog. And that's not always the case. Just because they like pets, that may mean they have cats for life. They may have chickens or rabbits or something like that, but they may not get a dog. They're oblivious. They don't care. The pondering people are thinking, we might get a dog. I think I have to feed this thing. So what kind of dog food do I need? But I'm not really interested in spending any time. So that's awareness content. Just make them aware that you are actually selling dog food. That's it. Just, we sell dog food. This is what it is. The engaged people are the ones that are actually going to get a dog. And they've got to learn about, what kind of dog food is best? Is it kibble? Is it wet food? Is it natural raw food? What brands are better? Where's it manufactured? People will actually go out and learn things. It's called Google, right? You go search it. And you find the brands that you want to engage with, and you learn about this stuff. And it could be videos, it could be podcasts, it could be articles, it could be infographics, it could be any of that stuff. But they're interested in learning about the details of what's better than this. The need people are the ones that are, we're going to get a dog today, and we're going to have to go to the dog food store and get something because the dog's got to eat, right? Yeah. So they're in the need phase, and they are ready for, man, I got to buy something. So they're going to go talk to the people at the store, and they're going to get that information. So if you break that down, basically the people that are pondering need awareness content. We sell dog food. The people that are engaged need educational content. They need to be taught exactly what it is that the differences are and why yours is better. And the sales process is usually something that's done in a one-on-one kind of connotation. It can be done in direct messages and social media. It can be done in an email blast or an email drip campaign. It can be done on the phone. It can be done in person. But the bottom line is you have to know where people are in the buying process, and you have to have the right content in front of them at the right time.
I love it. Thank you so much for breaking that down. What is it about LinkedIn then and content? Because I think a lot of people, when they think of content, they think of Google. Maybe people are seeing Facebook posts and Facebook groups. I think LinkedIn is becoming a little bit underrated. And when people think of LinkedIn, a lot of times they think of those spammy messages that they get over and over and over. Right. How do you effectively use LinkedIn to share that content?
Well, the biggest problem that you got is something called connect and pitch. There are a ton of people out there teaching you to use LinkedIn to say, okay, you can have up to 30,000 contacts on LinkedIn, which is true. All right, there's 600 million people on LinkedIn. All right, well, the bottom line is about, out of 600 million people, only about 10% of them are in the United States, and, X amount of maybe 25% even speak English. All right. So, when you start to narrow that down, now connect and pitch is people who are selling LinkedIn leads or LinkedIn strategies. Connect with everybody and then message them right away and say, hey, I know you got nothing better to do, but why don't you come on and watch my webinar, which is an hour long. When you're done with that, then let's set up a phone call. Here's my link. So you can spend another half hour listening to me tell you about how great my thing is that you don't have any clue about because you're in the oblivious stage, right? It's like that's what people are being taught to do. But if you get down to the real brass tacks, the real brass tacks are relationships. And LinkedIn, for example, you know how many people actually out of 600 million people post content?
I'm curious. I'm guessing not very many.
0.5%.
Wow.
0.5% of people post content. The reason is because people don't think that people engage with that content, because a lot of times people go on LinkedIn, they consume something, and then they leave. Right. LinkedIn is different than Facebook. Facebook works very hard to keep you inside of their bubble, inside of their sandbox. LinkedIn at least allows you to put in links to external documents. So in other words, in LinkedIn, you can go to an article on Inc. magazine. You can go to an article on, Virtual Assistant Daily. Maybe if you haven't created that magazine, you should do it. Or Executive Team Daily or whatever it is. The bottom line is they allow you to do that. So most people are consuming things, and a lot of people don't log in as much because of that connect and pitch. So when you're posting good content on LinkedIn, people tend to pay attention to it because it's different, it's unique, and it should be very educationally focused or awareness focused, either one of those two things. Don't go on there and be all pitch, sales, because people will just block you. They'll block you mentally and they'll also block you. They just won't pay attention to you.
Can you give us an example of some really good content that maybe one of your clients or that you've seen on LinkedIn that tends to engage people and help people get in front of their ideal audience?
Absolutely. I mean, one of the things that's really working great is what I call awareness posts. Now, I do them all the time, and I just got on doing one just a minute ago. And what they usually are graphic. Videos are cool. Video is like the biggest thing, but here's the bottom line. Most people are in an office. They don't have a headset, so they can't listen to the audio.
Right.
So, then some people circumvent that by putting the text in there, and people are just sitting there staring, waiting for the next line. No. Graphics. You got 8 seconds, man. That's it. So, sometimes even less than that, 3 or 4 seconds when people are scrolling. So if you create a really great awareness graphic that asks a question, that has a really good image in it, that has a link back to something, that's really going to get people's attention. And what I find my clients doing is they are generating a huge amount of traffic to their website. Now, when I say huge amount, I'm not talking about millions of visitors. I'm talking about 10 to 100 of the right visitors. Okay, it's people who are really interested in what they have to sell by using that, linking back to a blog post or an article or a page. And they're doing that in a way that is creating engagement on their own website, which is converting into sales.
I love it. So Brian, this is the Outsourcing and Scaling Show. We were chatting before. You love using remote teams. You love taking the economy. You've got virtual assistants. How are you as a marketing agency owner, as a marketing influencer, using remote people?
Well, I use them in a lot of different ways. My remote people, first and foremost, I have very specific needs. So in other words, I have somebody who is going to write content for blogs. I have somebody who is going to write content for websites. I have somebody who is going to create graphics. I'm going to have somebody who's going to take care of my email marketing. I look for people with very specific skill sets on very specific platforms, the ones that I use, to basically fill out my team. When I owned my recording studio, I had 5 employees. And what ended up happening to me is I ended up pushing more paper than actually doing what I loved. And so I was actually running the business, but I wasn't involved in the day-to-day operations. By using virtual teams, I can basically engage them in the tasks that I need done to serve my clients and still be hands-on with them and get in there and talk strategy and help them figure out who their audience is, what they need to say, and then I can guide those virtual people to do the specific things that I need to fulfill my clients' needs, which, of course, I can make money on. Not only do I make money on their services, but I make money on the services that I provide. And the bottom line is that, it gives me a wide array of skill sets at my fingertips as needed. Now, let me tell you something too. One of the stints that I had was at an ad agency. I worked at an ad agency, and that ad agency sold to its employees. And what it did is it had, somebody that was a radio commercial guy. So they're constantly selling radio commercials. And I was hired to be their Google guy. So I was there to do Google ads and analytics and set up websites and do all this other stuff. But because they had this high paid guy, we would go into meetings and they would talk radio and they would talk, TV commercials for 45 minutes and give me 15 minutes on internet, because that's where they were at. They were selling to their payroll. The beauty is I get to sell to the customer's needs. If they don't need graphics, I don't have to pay a graphics person. If they don't need blogs, I don't have to pay a blog person. So I can bring in the right team at the right time at the right volume, the amount that they need. And that's the beauty of outsourcing, of using services like yours that helps you fulfill exactly what your customers need just in time with the right volume of it.
Yeah, it's what I talk a lot about with marketing agencies. It's kind of building your Rolodex of reliable people that you can depend on. If you have 2 or 3 designers, 2 or 3 writers, and different projects come up, you upsell one of your clients and you have these people ready to go. Maybe one of them isn't available, but the other 2 are. And it just gives you a ton of flexibility to scale your business. And I'm sure you have some VAs that are more ongoing work, and you've got others that are more project-based when stuff comes up.
Exactly, yes. And then that's exactly it. I mean, I've got one VA who is specific. She takes care of she proofreads my blog. She sets up my email every single week. It's a very repetitive task. I mean, she knows exactly what she's doing every single week. That's very steady. There's other VAs that I use, when a client comes in and wants, blogs written or website page written. that's usually a one-time thing. You're writing the web pages, you're done, you move on, you find another client, that comes. So it's a kind of an ebb and flow kind of thing. So yeah, it varies depending on the client and the task. Some of it's for me, some of it's for them.
and I don't think you're that old. You're obviously older than me, but I think a lot of maybe clients that were around at the beginning of the internet, they struggled to communicate with people in the Philippines, outside the US. They don't want to have a Skype account. What methods do you use to communicate and to keep that communication strong so that you can run your business?
Every damn thing I can. So, it's a combination of Facebook messaging, LinkedIn messaging, telephone, email, Zoom, Skype, whatever it is. It just depends on what the needs are. If I need to do visual stuff, I've got to open up a Zoom meeting. I've got to pull up a screen and say, here's this, It's the only way that you can do it with people that are remote. Now, I've got people all over the country. I don't use a virtual assistant within, 500 miles of my office. They're all over the place. And I love that because I'm able to pick the right person, not based on their location, but based on their skill set.
I love it. Any tips to someone that is trying to build a marketing agency using remote teams? Any last tips before we move on?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the biggest thing that you've got to do is give everybody a trial period. It's get in there and learn. You're going to learn from your own mistakes. You're going to learn how to communicate better and be patient. That's the key thing is people are going to try to please you. And if they don't please you, don't fire them. Try to work with them and get to know them better and make sure that the level of expectation is matched on both sides, that you're meeting their needs, they're getting paid what they're worth, you're communicating things well, and they're getting feedback when they do good and when they do not so good.
I love it. What marketing trends do you see, maybe new marketing trends that have been very effective for you or for your clients?
Well, it depends on the kind of client, and that's the hardest thing. It's like I deal with everything from solopreneurs to $100 million companies. Right. The biggest, the most universal thing that's out there is relationship building, which takes time. So I'm seeing a lot of success of mining relationships on LinkedIn. I'm finding Facebook to be a lot harder because they're clamping down on the ability for posts to be seen. Everybody's going down the Instagram train. I'm not a huge fan of it. And the reason I'm not a huge fan of it is because it doesn't allow you to link out of it at all unless you're on the profile. There's varying different things. Here's the bottom line advice I give everybody is, number one, generate content. Number two, share it everywhere. And number three, make sure you measure what's happening and what's working for you. And, sometimes it might be a Facebook post. Sometimes it might be a LinkedIn post. Sometimes it could be on Twitter. You never know when something is all of a sudden going to start spiking. And you got to pay attention to the numbers. It's like anything else. You would never run a business without having QuickBooks and understanding your numbers. Otherwise, you could be just spending yourself into a black hole of oblivion and debt. Why would you do that with your business when it comes to online marketing? You need to measure what's working and do more of what's working and less of what's not.
Love it. Thanks so much for coming on. Really appreciate it. Where can people find out more about you, and what are you most excited about for the rest of the year?
Well, the best way to find me is go to Google, search Brian Basilico, Brian Basilico. You will find me everywhere. Where you want to meet me, I'm there. That's the key. And what I'm really excited about is podcasting and the way that it is starting to become so much more mainstream that people are getting it in their cars. It's showing up on pretty much everything, on my watch, my phone. I think that being audio is easily consumable at the gym, in the car, and places that, video probably is not. You could get into a car crash trying to watch a video, so I don't recommend it. So that's what I'm, audio also, the other trend that's happening is speakables like Alexa and, Echo and Google Home and all those kind of things. I think the audio revolution is really starting to take off.
Awesome, man. Really appreciate your time. Thanks again for coming on. And I look forward to, just crushing it the rest of the year with you. Should be fun.
Thanks, bud. I appreciate it, man.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching. Did you enjoy this content? If so, click like, leave us a comment, and subscribe to our channel so we can continue bringing you great content all about hiring.